In a village called Bokondo, nestled by the banks of the stream Itok Idim Nsokun Petrenji, the surrounding hills cradle the village, their slopes adorned with fruit-laden trees and fragrant herbs. Bokondo is more than just a place, it is a living, breathing community that thrives on connection between its people, its land, and the water that nourishes them. Here, traditions are cherished, and the beauty of simplicity reigns, creating a profound sense of belonging that binds the villagers to one another and to the lush world around them. King Mutanda ruled with a blend of wisdom and compassion. His reign was marked by prosperity and peace, and he was beloved by his subjects. Mutanda was a man of many virtues, and his family was the pride of his life. His first wife had given him a son, Namondo, a boy of remarkable promise and a future bright with hope. One fateful day, Namondo went for a swim in the village stream, as was his custom. The stream, while serene, held a deep and mysterious current. As Namondo swam, an unexpected strong current swept him away. Despite frantic attempts by the villagers who were also swimming with him to rescue him, Namondo couldn't be rescued and his body was never recovered. The loss plunged the village and its king into profound grief. The depth of Mutanda's sorrow was immense. His anguish led him to seek counsel from spiritualists and seers across neighboring towns and distant lands. Each one offered cryptic messages and obscure predictions, but there was a recurring theme: they all spoke of a being named Atim Okpo Ebot. The spiritualists' descriptions were vague, and no one could explain who or what this being was or how it might be connected to Namondo's disappearance. The king's frustration grew, his despair palpable. Months turned into years as Mutanda's heartache lingered. His once vibrant demeanor became subdued, and his kingdom felt the weight of his sorrow. During this time, his younger wife, Ekanem Ifonko, tried to ease his burden in any way she could. Though her efforts were well-intentioned, the king's heart remained heavy. Mama Namondo, as she was popularly called, cried her eyes out. Her only son, the heir apparent of Bokondo, is no more. She wept for her son and would not be comforted. In the village of Bokondo was a brave hunter known by the name Ekpo Musufe, whom the villagers buy bushmeat from. He hunts on certain weekdays and the villagers visit his home to buy from him. He was a committed hunter who detested gossip, and no one in the village dared to update him on the happenings, so he never had any relationship with the villagers. He hunts for a whole week sometimes and does not return home until the following month. So he was somehow cut away from happenings in the village. His family never enjoyed his presence to a consistent degree. One day, while Ekanem, King Mutanda's second wife, was at the hunter's house to buy bush meat, Ekpo Musufe sent his son to bring a big bowl so that he could get all the bush meat from the sack into the bowl for Ekanem Ifonko to make a choice, but the boy brought a knife instead. The village hunter ordered the son the second time that he meant a big bowl he uses to put meat for customers to select. The boy left and came back with a pot. At this point Ekpo Musufe was angry with his son, and snarled at him, "Is it that you can't hear again?" Then he teased him, "See your face like Atim Okpo Ebot." So Ekanem heard it and the name amused her, so she committed the name to memory. Eventually she bought some bush meat and went home. Several months later, a quarrel ensued between Namondo's mother, the senior wife of the king, and Ekanem Ifonko, the younger wife. While they both insulted each other, calling each other all sorts of names, Ekanem Ifonko teased the senior wife, "See your face like Atim Okpo Ebot." Immediately the king heard the name from Ekanem's mouth. He screamed at the two wives, "Stop! Stop! Stop! What name did I just hear? That name sounds like a name that is of importance to me." He demanded that Ekanem repeats the statement, and she did. So the king began to question Ekanem who Atim Okpo Ebot was, and she answered that she didn't know. Mutanda continued, so where and how did you get that name? Ekanem couldn't remember, so she responded, I can't remember. King Mutanda became very furious at Ekanem and disclosed to everyone that the name Atim Okpo Ebot was said to have been responsible for Namondo's disappearance. He explained to Ekanem that the spiritualist from neighboring towns and far distant where he sought counsel had said that if he can locate a being by the name Atim Okpo Ebot, he would find his son, and they don't seem to know the mysterious being and where she could be found. All efforts to make Ekanem see the need to confess all she knew about the name or tell the king about the source from which she had the name was proved abortive. Mutanda began to run out of patience and issued a threat that Ekanem will be killed if she does not disclose to him where she got the name from. But Ekanem in frustration started crying. At this point the king thought Ekanem has hands in Namondo's disappearance, so he gave her 7 market days to disclose the source of the name, otherwise faces the penalty of being beheaded at the market square by the masquerade. In order for Ekanem not to run away, the king ordered her to be locked up in the palace dungeon without food or water. Ekanem pleaded for her innocence, but the king wouldn't believe her. Desperate for answers as to who Atim Okpo Ebot was and where she lived, and why she chose to hold his son hostage, King Mutanda convened a meeting with all the elders in his cabinet for Ekanem's final judgment and sentence on the 7th day of 7 market days ultimatum, since she could neither disclose the source of the mysterious name nor produce Namondo. Ekanem, in her distress, kept pleading for mercy, but everyone thought she was pretending, otherwise how did she get to know about the mysterious name which the spiritualists revealed only to the king, and the king had not disclosed the name to anyone, not even Namondo's mother. As a consequence, she was sentenced to be executed by the village masquerade, a feared and solemn figure who presided over matters of justice. Beat their drums, sang several songs of sorrow, and the village became very noisy and filled with fright. Men and women, old and young, who had courage to witness event of this caliber gathered at the market square to witness Ekanem's execution. While the songs and drumming became intense, people who didn't know what was happening began to ask questions. A few pitied Ekanem, but most of them believed she was a witch and was the brain behind Namondo's disappearance, therefore she must face the consequences of her wicked action. At this point Ekpo Musufe, the hunter, was on his way back from hunting, and then he heard drums and songs of rituals, so he drew close and asked those who were going to the farm and not willing to witness the execution about what was going on, so they told him of Ekanem's predicament. Immediately, he remembered that the day he used the name to tease his son, Ekanem was in his house to buy bush meat and was sure she had the name from him. So he ran through the bush to the market square as fast as he could and immediately got to the market square. The masquerade had just ended the rituals, then moved with speed to cut off Ekanem's head, but they heard a loud voice coming from the bush, "Do not slaughter the innocent. Hold your peace, hold your peace, hold your peace." The masquerade replied, "Who are you and why do you think that the culprit is innocent?" The voice responded, "I am Ekpo Musufe, the brave hunter. The culprit is only but a victim of circumstance. She knows nothing about the mysterious name Atim Okpo Ebot, but I do." The masquerade demanded that the hunter shows himself. Immediately so Ekpo Musufe emerged from the bush into the crowd at the market square and explained his encounter with the mysterious being and how the name got to Ekanem Ifonko. The king's attention was immediately drawn to Ekpo Musufe's confession. He questioned the hunter about the origin of the name Atim Okpo Ebot. Ekpo, though visibly anxious, recounted his encounter with the mysterious being. He spoke of a fateful day when he ventured to forest to hunt and couldn't see a single animal to kill. He remained in the forest for a month and everywhere was dry. In frustration he decided to come back home empty-handed, and on his way back home, he heard his name from the midst of the forest, Ekpo Musufe, Ekpo Musufe, every day you hunt and you go home and eat all the meat. Do you think Atim Okpo Ebot does not eat bush meat? Ekpo Musufe in his brevity requested, Who are you? And how did you know my name? The voice replied with laughter, Ha 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 ha, I am Atim Okpo Ebot, I live in the water, in the forest and in the air. Atim Okpo Ebot detects what happens in Bokondo and the neighboring villages. I know you as the most courageous and brave man in Bokondo. You couldn't see any game today because I am not happy that you do not recognize my presence. You do not appease me or make little sacrifices to me. Don't you know that I have been watching your back? So Ekpo Musufe apologized to her, and as she stopped talking, he saw some animals and killed a number of them. So that day he went home with a lot of bush meat, but also left some in the bush for Atim Okpo Ebot. According to Ekpo, Atim Okpo Ebot was a guardian spirit who dwelled not only in the stream's underwater realms, a place shrouded in mystery and accessible only through ancient and sacred rites, but also in the forbidden forest. Ekpo Musufe felt sorry for the king's missing son and promised the king to embark on an adventurous journey in search for Namondo. Being a brave and wise hunter, he knew that he would need certain mysterious materials to go in search of Namondo, and where those items would be gotten will be across 7 dangerous rivers through the forbidden forest. King Mutanda, now filled with renewed hope, ordered a search party of 50 of the bravest men in Bokondo, led by Ekpo Musufe. The quest was perilous and involved obtaining sacred items from a forbidden forest, a place known for its dangerous flora and fauna. The items were required by the priest to communicate with the spirit and seek guidance. Among the items required was a rang, isak, a kukubarakepye, a snake with 7 heads, a goat with 2 heads, and many other impossible items which can only be obtained at the forbidden forest. The king gave the brave men in the kingdom the opportunity to volunteer to embark on a journey to the forbidden forest and across 7 dangerous rivers with the hunter. The men who volunteered got the king's promise of settling their families by taking up the responsibility of seeing to their daily well-being until the men returned, and in the event of death, their family would be catered for by the king for life. They were also made to understand that the journey was a matter of life and death, but for the love of their kingdom the 50 brave men staked their lives. So the day for the journey was fixed immediately. On the day Ekpo Musufe and the 50 bravest men of Bokondo were to commence their journey to the evil forest in search of the sacred items required for the commencement of the search for Namondo, their families wept profusely. It was a day in which they knew that they might not see those men again, because their mission success of returning alive was not guaranteed. They were grieved with sorrow, but Ekpo Musufe, the hunter, comforted them, as he let them know that he had been to the evil forest on several occasions and returned alive. He assured them that the gods that had helped him in the past will not turn their back against them. So after his speech, they took up their bags and headed to the forest. The journey to the forbidden forest and the 7 rivers were to be accomplished in 1 month, but this was not their experience, as the first month was full of strange happenings. Before they could get to the first river, all the men got lost and couldn't locate each other. The forest hid each one of them for more than 3 weeks until Ekpo Musufe, the hunter, by instinct and wisdom carried out certain incantations, and they were able to find each other again. So the journey continued up to the point where the 50 men were turned into tall trees. Again the hunter by wisdom knew what to do to bring them back, so all these strange experiences prolonged their journey. until they crossed all the 7 rivers to the forbidden forest where they found the strange tree and conducted the ritual required before cutting a part of the root. The journey to the forbidden forest had taken a toll on Ekpo Musufe and the 50 men from Bokondo. Yet, the most difficult part of their mission was still ahead, which was collecting the sacred items required for the search for Namondo. After performing the ritual by the strange tree and successfully cutting a part of its root, Ekpo Musufe and his men had to face the grueling task of retrieving the other sacred items: the white tortoise, the 7-headed snake, the python's egg, the eagle's eyes, the 2-headed goat, and a complete set of lion's teeth. Each item would test their strength, wisdom, and courage like never before. The first challenge was to find the elusive white tortoise. According to the stories passed down from the ancestors, the tortoise dwelled in the heart of a dense and enchanted swamp, hidden deep within the forest. The swamp was notorious for drawing men into its depths, never to be seen again. For days, Ekpo Musufe and the men searched through the thick mud and waist-high waters, their legs sinking with each step. Strange creatures darted in and out of the murky waters, some brushing against their legs, while others let out eerie sounds that echoed through the trees. At night, they heard the calls of spirits warning them to leave the tortoise undisturbed, but Ekpo Musufe remained resolute. Finally, on the 7th day, they spotted the tortoise, the gleaming white shell glowing in the moonlight. But capturing it was no simple task. The tortoise was faster than any tortoise had a right to be, slipping away with supernatural speed whenever they drew near. Ekpo Musufe, using his deep knowledge of the forest, instructed the men to weave a trap out of enchanted vines. By invoking ancient spells to slow the tortoise's speed, they were able to ensnare it and carry it with reverence, knowing that the sacred animal held great power. Their next trial was the 7-headed snake, which guarded a hidden cave filled with bones of those who had failed to steal its scales. Each of the snake's heads had its own venom, each more deadly than the last. The men approached the cave cautiously, with Ekpo Musufe leading them. They could hear the hissing and slithering of the serpent before they saw it. The snake was massive, coiled in the center of the cave with all 7 heads poised and ready to strike. Its eyes glowed a menacing green, and its scales reflected the dim light of their torches like polished metal. The men knew that one wrong move would mean death. But Ekpo, ever the wise hunter, knew that brute force would not defeat such a creature. With patience, he waited until the snake began to grow sluggish from the heat of the torches. Then, using a sacred flute passed down from his ancestors, he played a tune that lulled the snake into a trance. The men crept forward and carefully tied the 7 heads with a sacred string and put the snake in their bag, before retreating quickly. As soon as they had caught, vanished into the shadows of the forest. The python's egg was said to be protected by the spirit of the python itself, a guardian of the forest who would not tolerate trespassers. Ekpo and his men found the nest high up in a massive tree, the egg glowing faintly with an ethereal light. However, as soon as they attempted to climb the tree, the spirit of the python appeared, an enormous, shimmering apparition of a snake that towered over them. It hissed warnings in a language only Ekpo could understand. The spirit demanded a sacrifice in exchange for the egg. Ekpo, knowing that the spirit had to be appeased, offered the python spirit a portion of the root from the sacred tree, as it was believed to have great healing properties. The spirit accepted this gift, retreating into the shadows, allowing the men to climb the tree and retrieve the egg. The eagle whose eyes they sought was no ordinary bird. It was a creature of the skies, blessed by the gods to see all things in the land and beyond. The eagle's nest was located at the peak of a mountain that pierced the heavens, its cliffs so steep that one misstep would mean falling to a certain death. For days, the men climbed the mountain, battling fierce winds and icy cold temperatures. Their hands bled from gripping sharp rocks, and their muscles ached with exhaustion. When they finally reached the summit, they found the eagle waiting for them. Ekpo Musufe approached the eagle cautiously, knowing that to simply take the bird's eyes would anger the gods. He knelt before the majestic creature and, through prayer and meditation, asked the gods for permission to take what they needed. The gods answered by allowing the eagle to shed its eyes willingly. In return, the men left behind gifts of cowries they had carried with them as offerings. Finding the two-headed goat was an equally bizarre challenge. The goat roamed the plains near the forest, but it was known for its ability to appear and disappear at will. The men searched for weeks, often seeing the creature from a distance only for it to vanish the moment they drew near. Ekpo Musufe realized that the goat was playing with them, testing their determination. He instructed the men to stop chasing the creature and instead to sit in a clearing, offering it food and water. After several days of patience, the goat appeared before them, drawn by their offerings. With great care, they captured the goat and continued on their way. The final challenge was to collect a complete set of lion's teeth. The lions of the Forbidden Forest were no ordinary beasts, they were enormous, with manes of fire and roars that could shake the earth. Confronting one was to face death itself. Yet, Ekpo Musufe knew that to kill a lion in its prime would anger the spirits of the forest. Instead, he sought out an old, dying lion, the king of the jungle who had lived his life to the fullest. Ekpo approached the great beast with respect, offering it water and a final meal. The lion, recognizing the hunter's wisdom and compassion, allowed him to take its teeth. As the lion breathed its last, Ekpo and the men honored the beast with a burial fit for a king, ensuring that its spirit would rest peacefully. After 6 long months of hardship, Ekpo Musufe and the 50 men of Bokondo had finally gathered all the sacred items. Their bodies were worn and bruised, their minds haunted by the strange and powerful forces they had encountered. Yet, despite the trials they had faced, not a single life was lost, a testament to Ekpo's leadership and the gods' protection. When they finally began their journey back to Bokondo, they were unrecognizable. Their hair had grown long, their faces were gaunt, and their clothes were tattered. As they approached the village, they were met with shock and disbelief. Their families, who had long since assumed they were dead, rushed out to meet them, crying tears of joy and relief. Ekpo Musufe, holding the sacred items high, declared that their mission was a success. The search for Namondo could now commence, and the village of Bokondo would soon be restored to its former glory. The men were hailed as heroes, their names forever etched into the history of their people. But Ekpo Musufe knew that their journey had been far more than a quest for sacred items, it had been a test of their courage, wisdom, and endurance, the journey that would be remembered for generations to come. The journey to search for Namondo. After the triumphant return of Ekpo Musufe and the 50 brave men from the Forbidden Forest, the village of Bokondo rejoiced. The sacred items were finally gathered, but the true challenge still lay ahead. The next part of the journey was a perilous and solitary mission, one that only Ekpo Musufe could undertake. It was time to free the heir apparent, Prince Namondo, who had been held captive in the domain of the mermaids for over 2 years. 3 days after his return, Ekpo Musufe rested, regaining his strength and preparing his mind for the journey ahead. He knew this task would be unlike any other. The mermaids were ancient beings, powerful and mysterious, with dominion over the waters. The only person who could guide him on this treacherous journey was the enigmatic Atim Okpo Ebot, a wise elder who had a deep connection to the spirit world. Ekpo Musufe set out alone, carrying the sacred items that he and his men had fought so hard to retrieve. His journey took him to the sacred stream where Atim Okpo Ebot resided, an ancient waterway said to be the boundary between the world of men and the supernatural. It was there that Ekpo Musufe submerged himself into the unknown, diving beneath the surface and descending into a world few had ever seen and returned from. The trials beneath the stream. Ekpo Musufe spent over 6 months beneath the stream in the company of Atim Okpo Ebot. The elder was a stern but patient guide, teaching Ekpo the ancient rituals, incantations, and sacrifices that would be necessary to free Prince Namondo from the clutches of the mermaids. Every day was a test of his resolve and faith as he navigated the strange and mystical world beneath the waters. Time passed differently here. What felt like days to Ekpo were mere moments in the outside world. Atim Okpo Ebot was not merely a teacher, she was the gatekeeper to the world of the mermaids, and her assistance did not come without cost. She set before Ekpo a series of trials that tested his courage, wisdom, and endurance. The first task was to find the silver pearl of the abyss, hidden in the belly of a monstrous fish that swam in the deepest parts of the stream. Ekpo Musufe spent weeks hunting the fish, evading other predatory creatures, before he was finally able to slay it and retrieve the pearl. The second task was even more difficult. Atim Okpo Ebot instructed Ekpo to retrieve a single tear from the eye of the sea spirit, a being that never cried. For days, Ekpo prayed, meditated, and made offerings to the sea spirit until finally, moved by his sincerity and determination, the spirit shed a single tear, which Ekpo collected in a small vial. The final task was the most dangerous. Ekpo Musufe had to enter the underwater palace of the mermaids and confront their queen, a powerful and cunning being known for her beauty and ruthlessness. He was to offer her the sacred items in exchange for the prince, but even that would not be enough. The queen demanded that Ekpo bring her the heart of a serpent that guarded her throne, a serpent that no man had ever defeated. Ekpo fought the serpent for days, using every ounce of his strength and every trick he had learned as a hunter. It was a battle of wits as much as of strength, but in the end, Ekpo Musufe triumphed. He offered the serpent's heart to the queen, and she, bound by the laws of her realm, had no choice but to release Prince Namondo. The return of the crown prince. After what felt like an eternity beneath the waters, Ekpo Musufe finally returned to the surface, Prince Namondo by his side. The prince was weak and frail, but alive. The people of Bokondo, who had feared that their future king would never return, were stunned when they saw Ekpo Musufe emerging from the waters with the prince in his arms. News of their return spread like wildfire, and the entire village gathered at the edge of the stream to witness the momentous occasion. The women wailed with joy, the men beat their chests in celebration, and the children danced in the streets. The elders of the village, who had long prayed for the prince's safe return, wept with gratitude and praised Ekpo Musufe as a hero beyond compare. The prince, though weak, stood before his people and, with the help of Ekpo Musufe, addressed them. He spoke of his gratitude to the gods, to the spirits of the ancestors, and to Ekpo Musufe, the hunter who had risked everything to bring him home. His words echoed through the village, filling the hearts of the people with pride and hope for the future. The 7 days of celebration. The return of Prince Namondo called for a celebration unlike any other. For 7 days and 7 nights, the village of Bokondo erupted in joyous festivities. The drummers played tirelessly, their beats reverberating through the land. The dancers moved with grace and fervor, their bodies telling stories of triumph and perseverance. The women prepared feasts with the finest meats, fruits, and wines, while the men told stories of Ekpo Musufe's bravery and the trials he had faced. Every night, the village gathered around great bonfires, where the elders recounted the tales of the sacred journey and Ekpo Musufe's valor. They honored the spirits, the gods, and the ancestors who had guided their people through such dark times. On the final night of celebration, a grand ceremony was held in the village square. The king himself, though still weak from his long ordeal, stood before his people and declared Ekpo Musufe and the 50 brave men as the saviors of Bokondo. Each man was awarded the highest honors, gifts of gold, silver, and rare jewels that marveled the entire kingdom. Ekpo Musufe, in particular, was presented with a special honor. The king bestowed upon him a golden staff, a symbol of wisdom and strength, and declared him the protector of Bokondo, a title that would be passed down through his lineage for generations. The people hailed him as the greatest hunter and warrior in the history of the village, and songs of his deeds were sung long into the night. As the celebrations drew to a close, peace and prosperity returned to the village of Bokondo.